It's now a minute after the hour of 8 o'clock. It's Wednesday morning, and at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday, you know we have our very special feature. And so we'd like to say welcome to Real Estate Today, brought to you courtesy of Howard Johnson Realty Limited of unit number 15 in the Ligony Post Mall at 115 Hope Road in Kingston. Of course, this morning, as we have been telling you, we have the topic, the role of the real estate board that we'll be looking at. And just before I introduce and welcome our guests, I want to tell you that the real estate industry comprises a wide range of professionals, including brokers, there are agents or salesmen, there are dealers, also property managers, developers, appraisers, and more. All professionals in this industry are held to very high standards under which they must conduct their business, and they are in fact governed by the Real Estate Board of Jamaica. So joining us to discuss this topic, the role of the real estate board this morning, we have in the studio, as per usual, Howard Johnson Jr. Good morning, Howard.
Good morning to you, Richie. Morning.
How are you today, sir?
Boy, I'm alright, you know. I wanted to say my wife might just say you have a permanent address though, not the original. Come there upon the streets with shares last night and first thing this morning we're there again. So I know the thing said.
Yeah, it's a good look. Thank you so much for joining us, man. And morning, Shells. And we're also joined at this time by Mrs. Sandra Garrick, who is the CEO of the Real Estate Board and also of the Commission of Strata Corporations. Good morning, Mrs. Garrick.
Good morning. Good morning, Richie. Good morning, Mr. Johnson.
Morning, Mrs.
Good morning,
Garrick.
Jamaica.
So glad that you could join us this morning. We haven't done this in a minute, have we?
Have we? And not as often as Howard.
Certainly not. But you're always welcome, and you know that.
Thank you.
Now, what would you say then are the main roles and responsibilities of the Real Estate Board, Mrs. Garrick?
Well, the Real Estate Board was actually set up to protect purchasers in prepayment contracts. That's those who are buying development before they're constructed. So we regulate real estate developers. We regulate real estate dealers and salesmen. And just for the information of your listeners, the term dealer is an English terminology which is equivalent to brokers in the U.S. So you'll see they'll use both terms. And we regulate salesmen, which we refer to, which is an English terminology, but the American equivalent is agent. So we regulate both groups, and we regulate developers. We hold them to ethical standards. So both groups have ethics that they have to abide by. And as the new board is in place, we just want to point out that the board is getting sterner on compliance with all the laws.
We're glad to hear that. We are, in fact, glad to hear that. I wanted to go back to something you said earlier, though. And if you can, would you tell us the difference between a real estate dealer and a real estate salesman?
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'd be happy to inform Jamaica. Real estate dealers actually operate their own shop. They are the ones who are responsible for the activity of the whole dealership. And the salesman or agent should work with them in the capacity as an associate. So they can't operate on their own.
Okay.
And this is why we insist that advertisements from the salesman must bear the name of the dealer with whom they're employed or associated.
Okay, and you say must.
Must.
I heard the stress on that. I'm going to bring Howard in at this point while we're talking about titles and terminologies and so on. The terms broker, Howie, versus realtor versus real estate agent. We know that they're used interchangeably here, but are they the same? Tell us.
They're not quite the same, and as Mrs. Garrick mentioned earlier, the Real Estate Dealers and Developers Act does speak to a dealer, and she clarified that that's also akin to a broker, and it does speak to salesmen, which you will now refer to as real estate agents. But when you start to get into the terminology realtor and realtor associate, now that is a title given to persons who are members of a local association that is affiliated with the National Association of Realtors operating out of the United States. And the Realtors Association of Jamaica, they are one designated body by the NAR for persons who are members of that association to now take onto themselves the title realtor, as in broker, and realtor associate, as in real estate agents.
Okay. Mrs. Garrick, as it relates to real estate dealers, how does the real estate board sort of facilitate qualified learning? And there's a new term I'm going to introduce to some of my listeners, upskilling for the real estate dealers.
Well, currently, the Real Estate Training Institute offers courses for a person who would like to upskill. So the first thing they offer is the Real Estate Salesman or Agent course. And then 18 months after you have practiced, you're allowed to apply to do the Real Estate Dealers course. That course is a 6-month course. And once you're successful in that course, you're required to do an apprenticeship, because we don't assume that everything is passed on through the books and formal learning. So sometimes another dealer has to give you the opportunity to understudy him or her to know how to properly run a real estate dealership. And so the board supervises that period of attachment, and at the end of the attachment, they determine if that person has performed successfully.
Okay. As it relates to, and I'm sure that a lot of my listeners are waiting for me to ask you this one, as it relates to developers and their operations, can you say what governance the real estate board has over these entities and individuals?
Well, I'm very glad you asked that question, Richie B., because sometimes the public mix up the role that real estate board is required to play.
Yes.
The real estate board is not required to look at the quality of the development or to ensure that approvals are adhered to. That is strictly the purview of the municipality. That is the KSAC or the St. Catherine municipality. That entity that gives that approval. What the real estate board is required to do is to ensure that contractual obligations between the developer and the purchaser is actually honored, or the contractual obligations are honored. So it is important to us to first register the real estate developer to ensure that proper due diligence is done of him to determine his financial soundness, and also that he's fit and proper for persons to enter into real estate transactions with. Once the registration is done, we look at to ensure that all the approvals are in place. Then we advise members of the public that it is okay to enter into contracts with each person. And that is important because it protects the purchaser.
Absolutely. I was just about to say it's a very important role that you perform. I want to bring back Howie here. Howie, as it relates to a licensed realtor and broker, what would you say are your assigned responsibilities to the real estate board itself?
Well, we are responsible to ensure that the persons who are attached to us as in agents, that they're complying with the Real Estate and Dealers and Developers Act. They're also, adhering to the governance structure, and it extends to, as was indicated earlier, the Proceed of Crimes Act, where we have to do our due diligence on our customers. So the brokers and dealers have to ensure that they are compliant as an entire brokerage. We also have to upskill, which is our CPD, continuing professional development. We have to ensure that we continue to better ourselves and adhere to all the policy documents that are issued by the board and the guidance that is given, primarily through the Real Estate Training Institute as well. We have to do our reports, and we have to make our books available if an inspector wants to see, what it is that we're doing, because we have an ultimate regulatory responsibility to the real estate board, and we have to make sure that we are compliant. So it's really just whatever it is that their remit is with the dealers and developers that we are complying, and we have to report accordingly.
All right.
Yes.
We're over time, but I'm going to ask Mrs. Garrick one final one, because I think this is also important. We know, Mrs. Garrick, that the Real Estate Act, in fact, governs the board's authority and operations and all transactions and so on, as well as whatever the professionals are doing in the industry. Are we to expect any changes to this act anytime soon? Is it under review?
It's currently under review, and the review is far advanced. So yes, and the changes are fundamental.
Okay.
Because whatever areas we saw that needed to be strengthened are in fact being reviewed for strengthening.
Is there a timeline on when it might be ready with this update?
It is difficult to give a timeline because of the passage of legislation, but I would say, to give you an idea, we are at about the third or fourth bill, which means that once the board of directors signs off on the bill, it will then start the process through Parliament.
All right, sounds good. Howie, at this point, a tip maybe? A tip of the day?
Yes, well, it's simple this morning. If you're looking to purchase units in Jamaica, and especially for your listeners in the diaspora, be sure to contact the real estate board, and you can do so by calling them or visiting their website before getting involved in a transaction. And this is to ensure that the developers are in fact registered and operating above board. No pun intended.
And you know that Mrs. Garrick has no difficulty with
I'm sure.
that tip.
All I'll say to that, Richie B, is amen.
Amen is what she'd say to that. Now then, Audley, your voice is ready. It's time for
Going but not yet gone. All right.
Over to you, Howie.
Yeah, so we introduced a property in this small complex before, and we're bringing another unit, a comfortable and spacious one-bedroom flat.
One down, one to go.
Yes, sir. Located in Valley View Crescent in Montego Bay. And it offers beautiful views, as the previous tenant can attest to, of the valley and also of the hills. And the unit is perfect for a single person, a single professional. We're asking only $46,000 per month for this property. And you may contact our agent or realtor associate, now that you know the title, Narda Sterling. She can be reached at 876-419-6249. That's Narda Sterling, 419-6249, or send her an email at narda@hjrealtors.com.
Good luck with that one, Narda. And all the contact details for Howard Johnson Realty.
Unit 15, Ligony Post Mall, that's 115 Hope Road. You can contact our offices at 876-620-1457. Visit our website, www